All right, so this informative presentation is going to be over um, photography. So, a lot of people just usually use their phones or the cameras to point and shoot and to take a quick picture. They use Snapchat, things like that. So, it's for a pretty broad audience. Um, and there's a lot of little things here and there that you see on the iPhone and your phone or camcorder, anything else like that. There's a lot of different settings, and a lot of it can get really overwhelming. And so there is different tools and tips and tricks to help you figure out how to use the functions and the features that are in your phone or on your camera. Some of the few things that we're going to go over today are the camera grid, f-stops, how to blur the background, as well as what does shutter speed and aperture and all those different kind of things mean. And of course, like whenever you're being sold a camera or a phone, um, they always say it has this many megapixels. It has um, this different kind of specs about the camera, and I'll kind of go a little bit in depth about that in a little bit. So the first thing is the camera grid. That's going to be the first and most obvious thing that most people see but kind of disregard. And this camera grid is here to help you place the subject in the frame. It can be toggled on or off, but basically what this does is help create a frame for your subject to be placed in a third of the picture. It's called the rule of thirds. So just like this lighthouse that's in this picture, it's going to be in the left third of the camera, and it's reaching all the way up from the top to the bottom. So it's half, 2/3 of the photo is the background or something else, and then your subject is placed in 1/3 of it. So that camera grid is just there to help you correctly place your subject so your composition is a bit more pleasing to the eye. And so the next thing we're going to go over is the exposure triangle. This is including your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO, but with being the shutter speed and aperture being the main two focal points in this one, just because they are the two most settings that you're going to be playing around with and more familiar with whenever you are going to be taking a picture. So the first thing is the shutter speed. It controls the light and length. So how long the picture is going to be taken. It's measured in seconds and controls whether motion is captured or if it's standing still. So that's how you kind of get either like a very sharp image or a very blurry image. So as you can see on photo B, the seconds is 1/30th of a second. So it is very quick, and the car looks more like it's standing still, even though it's not in focus, as compared to photo C, where it was open for a longer period of time, even though it's 1/4 of a second. Um, in camera talk, 1 second is very long for it to be your camera to be open taking the picture. So it's allowing in more light and more movement in that second. So it's going to be a little bit more blurry the longer it's taken. So in that amount of time, that little car that's blurry, that's why it looks blurry, because that's how far it's moved in that 1/4 of a second, as compared to for 1/30th of a second. That's why it looks more still. So the next point in the exposure triangle is the aperture. This controls light and size, so it's going to be measured in f-stops, and it's going to expand and contract the lens. That's the size that it's measuring in. So the smaller the number, the wider the lens is open. So as you see in picture A, the f-stop is very small at 2.8, and it is going to be open pretty wide, and the depth of field is going to be pretty wide as well, and it's going to be a little bit more blurry in the background because it's allowing more light to be captured at that moment, as compared to picture B, where the f-stop is 5.6. So the lens is a lot tighter, it's a lot smaller, so it's allowing less light in, and it's easier for the camera to focus a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit more in picture as compared to picture A. And kind of going into that, with the blurriness and the subject of a photo, we have the bokeh effect. Um, it's a Japanese word that means haze or blur. So that's how you kind of get the subject very in close in the front, and then everything in the background kind of fades to light dots, as how it looks like in this picture, to where the light is coming in so much and it's out of focus. And just really what it means is like how the lens focuses um, out of focus points of light. So what's in focus is the subject of this male figure with the hood, and in the background you have a cityscape that has a bunch of lights, and the way that it's refracting in the lens means that it's going to be so out of focus it creates a blur to where it creates a central focus on your subject rather than the entire landscape and picture behind him as well. So as a recap, um, we have a the camera grid, the exposure triangle that includes the shutter speed, the aperture, and that in turn you can use for the bokeh effect, just to kind of help you take better pictures and more uh, composition friendly, pleasing to the eye kind of pictures that are placed in the rule of thirds, movement, and controlling the light with your iPhone or your camera. All right. And that is the end of the presentation.